guys, welcome back to the Big Sew Along. I'm Jenny, and as always, I thank you very much for choosing to spend some time with me. Today I have a t-shirt upcycle for you guys, a little tutorial. But before I get to that, I wanted to just make a little announcement. I had a snafu with my video last week. I had to take down, I posted my video as usual on Sunday, and then I took it down on Monday morning to do a quick bit of editing, and then I reposted it. It doesn't really matter to you guys for the most part, except that means when I took it down for editing, I lost all of the comments that you guys left me. So anybody who commented on my video on Sunday or the day it was released, I did not get a chance to respond to any of those comments. I really do my best to read and respond to all comments. I love having conversations with you guys, and I'm really sorry that I missed out on that last week. So again, apologies. This week I have a t-shirt upcycle tutorial for you. Now originally I was going to do two. I was going to do this one, which is an upcycle, and I was going to do a quick little tutorial on a refashion, just creating a cap sleeve refashion. However, once I got my upcycle video done, it was a little bit longer than I thought it would be, so we're just going to save the cap sleeve for another time. This is the original t-shirt I was working with. This is a child size large. I got it from the thrift store. I really kind of thought that it would be I was positive thinking. I kind of thought it would be okay. I could just wear it as is. But it's a little tight in the middle, first of all, which I just generally don't like. But also because it's a child's large, the armholes were a little bit small. So it's fine. I love doing an upcycle. This one was really fun. I used two different thrift store t-shirts for this. One is this one here, and then one was just like a large men's red t-shirt. And then I also used some scraps of white fabric. As a template, I used my Pattern Emporium Keep It Simple t-shirt, and this one is cut in a size 10. Now normally I wear a size 12 in this t-shirt. At some point I must have wanted something to be a little bit more fitted, so mine is cut down to a size 10. Okay, let's get to this tutorial and then we'll talk about it some more. Okay, so I have my t-shirt here and I have already taken it apart. I cut off the side seams, the arms, the neckband, and the shoulders. I have not done anything with the hem yet, although I will in a minute. And just for reference, when I do something like this, I do not unpick, especially on black, because I will inevitably put more holes in my shirt than will be reparable. So I just cut it out to avoid damaging the shirt. So today I'm using the Pattern Emporium Keep It Simple Babe semi-fitted tee. This one is a size 10. This has a variety of different necklines, and I think we're going to use the boat neckline on this one, but we'll see. Alright, so I'm going to fold this in half as best I can. And put this on my pattern. And we can see, if I use the boat neckline, that's this dotted line right here. So I'm just going to sort of line this up with that. You can raise your neckline or lower it however you like. The thing is, I just want my image to be more or less centered, and that looks pretty good on this one. So I'm just going to go with that. So I'm using 1/4 inch seam allowances on this. And that is right here on this. And then 1/4 inch down here is right here. So I'm going to say I need exactly an inch extra on this shoulder. I've already measured, and I need the same thing on the back. So I'm going to cut a piece of fabric from this white scrap. I am going to cut 2 pieces of fabric. that are going to be 2.5 inches long, and they're going to be the width of my shoulder. So in this case, it is about 4 inches. So 2.5 inches long by 4 inches wide. Okay, now we have our little patches. I am going to just attach them to my shoulders like this, right sides together. All right, I'm gonna go sew these down. Okay, and now that those are on there, we're going to put our back on here. Make sure it's right sides together. And we're gonna sew this edge to the back of our shoulder. Sometimes, like in this case, I think that the back shoulder of my shirt, just because where I cut it, is a little bit wider than the front. So when you make your patches, you should probably double check to make sure that they're wide enough to go over the back shoulder. Okay, now my shoulder patches are on. I am going to check the length of this. I think, so my shoulder's right about there. Maybe about like that. It looks like I'm going to need, I'm just kind of obviously guesstimating here. It looks like I'm going to need about 2 inches on the bottom of this. However, my hem is 5/8 of an inch. So my hem is going to take me to right about here. So, but the hem on this shirt is right here. So I think if I cut a piece that is, this comes right to my hem here. So 1, 2, 3. If I cut this, I'm going to cut it 4 inches long. And I'm going to cut it, 4 inches wide. And I'm going to cut it long enough to go from one side to the other side. I'm going to cut 2 of those, one for the front and one for the back. All right. Now, on this t-shirt, this originally had like a high-low hem, but it's distorted because it's been washed and worn and whatever, and it's a kid's t-shirt, so it probably wasn't like the best in the first place. So I'm going to do my best to just sort of even this out. Okay, now that I have the length where I want it, I am going to take one of these pieces and sew it all the way across the front, right sides together. And I'm going to use the other band to do the same thing on the back. Alright, so this is where we are so far. Obviously my bottom bands are longer than they needed to be. That's fine. We're not going to worry about that. What I can tell is from laying this roughly in the center of my shirt, I think it looks like I'm pretty close to having enough room to fit this in. But I want to use white bands down the sides, and I don't want them to be too narrow. So I'm going to make a little mark right here. And I am going to cut this off, both layers together. This really wants to fold under. We want this to be more or less a straight line. So that looks like it's about 1.5 inches. So I'm going to make a mark 1.5 inches from this side seam, and I'm going to cut all the way down like that. And then I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. Okay, so now that's all cut off. Now I want to add my side panels, and I'm going to use my white again for this. So I just cut off 1.5 inches, and I want it to be a little bit wider than that. So I want each side panel to be 2 inches, but I need a seam allowance. A seam allowance for this edge and a seam allowance for the other edge. So that is 1/2 inch. So if I want it to be 2 inches wide, I need to cut my panels 2.5 inches wide by, it's going to be hard to tell now because I cut most of my armhole off, but it's going to go to right about here. And it really doesn't matter if you go further than this, it's just going to get cut off when we put our armhole in, our sleeve in. So mine is going to be 2.5 inches wide, and it's going to be about 16.5 inches long, and I'm going to cut 4 of those. All right, so here are our panels, and I am going to start by pinning mine at the bottom. Remember, these are probably going to be too long, so I'm going to start from the bottom. I want that to be pretty even because that is going to be our hem. And I'm just going to pin it all the way up. And I'm going to go ahead and sew that all the way down. And then I'm going to put the other one on the other side of the front, making sure we're right sides together. Yeah, this way. So here, and then I'm going to put 2 more. The other 2 are going to go on either side of the back. So 1 here and 1 here. All right, so this is what we have so far. We are actually just about done. I am going to turn this wrong side out and match up my sides as best I can. Remember, when you're working with an old t-shirt like this, you can see it does have a little bit of torque in it, so it might just not match up exactly, but close enough. So you can see how these shoulders are going to be a little off. It's fine. We're just going to go with it. Okay, so this is my front t-shirt. I'm actually going to fold this seam allowance on the side back for right now, just so I don't get confused. And I'm going to lay this under here. Nope, wrong way. I'm going to lay this on top of here like this. And it looks like, if I wanted to leave my neckline the way it is, I could. I actually think I really do want to do this boat neckline, so I'm going to go ahead and cut that out while I'm here. You can see down here on this whole side, it's really just barely the right width, so I'm not going to do anything on this side. Now, if you were smarter than me and you added more to the side, then you could use the shaping here and do whatever you wanted, but this is going to be just fine for me. The one thing I do want to do is draw out my neckline, like I said, and cut out my armhole. I'm just going to mark it like this. This is going to be a teeny tiny bit bigger than my sleeve, so I can take that in a bit. Should use something I can see. So for this armhole, to make sure my sleeve fits, I'm just gonna taper that out like that. All right, and that'll be the front, and then I'm gonna flip this over and do the exact same thing for the back. And then I'll go ahead and trace out my neckline on the front and back while I'm at it. All right, so really the rest of this is just gonna be put together the way you would put together any other t-shirt. I am going to go ahead and put my sleeves in. I've cut mine out of the rest of that red t-shirt I was using. And I have some left over. I found a bit of the t-shirt with some markings on it, which I like. And I'm going to use those for my neckline bindings. So sleeves in, and then sew up the sides, neck binding, hem, and you're done. All right, so here's my original t-shirt again, and here is my final t-shirt, my revamped t-shirt. I actually really love the way this came out. I would do a couple things differently if I was going to do it again. First of all, I would cut it in a size 12 and not a size 10. Because you can see in these pictures, it's still, I mean, it's honestly not that much bigger around than it was originally. It definitely has a better shape than it was originally, but it could be a little bit bigger. It's fine for a fitted t-shirt. I just prefer my t-shirts to be a tiny bit roomier, especially like right through the midsection. Additionally, my patches on the shoulder, I don't know if you can be able to tell. I wish I had made them bigger. They look cute, and I wish that they came down a little bit more. So if I do it again, I would make those patches a little bit longer. Also, I said in the tutorial that I was using this t-shirt that has this printing on it. This was kind of a nightmare to use as a binding because A, it's hard to press. This stuff is vinyl and it melts. So it's really hard to press it, number one. It's also hard to get this to stretch nicely because of that vinyl. So I had a hard time getting my neckline in without looking like bumpy and weird. So I think, although I think you can use printing on stuff like the bindings and stuff, I think it just can't be this like stiff plasticky kind. You know what I mean? I did have some other ideas. If you like the idea of doing a tutorial like this, but you don't want a band going right across your midsection, you could easily do, as long as you're doing a t-shirt that is a color that's easy to come by, like black or white or red or something like that, you could just use the bottom panel in the same color as the rest of your t-shirt. Even if it's not exact, I think that's fine. In fact, that's probably better. And then also I was thinking that if you wanted it to have a little more of a swing shape, instead of cutting rectangles for those sides, you could just cut them, is that a trapezoid? Where it's like a triangle. So it gets wider at the bottom. That could be really cool too. I also wanted to tell you, and I should have said this at the beginning of the video, and I forgot. I got the idea for this upcycle from watching Doris. Doris has her own YouTube channel here, and I apologize, I cannot remember what it's called right now, but I'll put it on the screen when I edit this later. And I watched one of her tutorials on upcycling a too small shirt into a tunic. So if you're interested in doing something like this, only you would prefer to have it as more of a tunic instead of a t-shirt, I will leave a link to Doris's video below too. Alright guys, I hope you found something useful in that tutorial. I have had a lot of fun doing these t-shirt upcycles and refashions, so I hope you've enjoyed it as well. That is it for me this week. Until next week, I wish you all happy sewing.